Hey y'all, Infinite Enzo here, and as you can see, got a watch box in front of me. Y'all seem to enjoy the last watch video that I did, so I wanted to keep intermingling some watch content in with our regular knife videos. And of course, those regular knife videos are still coming. I'm actually in the process of editing the 4Max video on my super modded 4Max Scout, and that's coming soon. But for right now, let's talk about my favorite watch brand, Zodiac. Let's get into it. Alright y'all, let's just start with opening this thing up, and what this is going to be is we're just going to go over my collection of Zodiacs and what it is about Zodiac that really evokes a sense of, I don't know, just style and adventure and all that cool guy stuff that kind of gets me interested in the brand and why they're my favorite brand. So we're just going to go through these. This is actually my latest one that I've picked up, and this is kind of a very funky, very weird one. This is a Zodiac Seawolf. The Seawolf, of course, is Zodiac's flagship dive watch. I'll drop in some photos of the classic Seawolf. It came out the same year that the Rolex Submariner came out, but even though it was one of the earliest dive watches in use by divers, it did not reach the level of acclaim, of course, that the Submariner did, which for a guy like me is wonderful because I can actually afford Seawolves. This one is a particularly interesting one because this one was very obviously made in the 90s. Look at that bracelet. But it was made during a point in time where the former CEO of Tag Heuer, who had left the company very unamicably, he purchased, I believe, outright purchased Zodiac, who was kind of flailing at the time. And he introduced a new line of watches that was incredibly reminiscent of existing Tag Heuer models and used design cues that Tag Heuer had been using. And this Seawolf is from that era. It's a quartz movement. Quartz, of course, was pretty dominant in the 90s. There were still automatics around, but quartz was kind of the go-to standard. It's a quartz movement. It is a 36 millimeter case. It's got a very I don't know how to describe this. I guess the case is really going more for elegance than tool, which is interesting because there were several more tool-looking dive watches in their lineup at the time, but the Seawolf line in particular was made with much more of these sort of flowing, elegant kind of lines. One thing you might notice is that little blue dot there between the 4 and 5 o'clock hour markers. That identifies this watch as being part of Zodiac's point series. They had this series of watches that had little colored dots on them in that little area there. And they were red points. Initially it was red point, silver point, and gold point. And the delineations between each point really wasn't fleshed out. Nobody really knew what it meant. There's theories that it stood for quality because some had sapphire crystals, as this one does, while some had mineral. The red ones tended to have mineral. But there was a lot of overlap, though. It really made no sense. So this was a later one called a blue point, and all of the Seawolves had the blue point. What's also interesting about this watch is that dial. That is what I think it is a granite dial, which is another lift from Tag Heuer. They were making granite dials on their subs, on their dive watches and all kinds of stuff. But it is a very iconic kind of look. Almost looks like a tropic dial, which is a tropical dial, I should say, which is why it really caught my eye. And lastly, of course, is this funky bracelet. I mentioned this earlier, but I've got the diver's extension out right there. This bracelet is really interesting. It seems to me to be kind of another lift from Heuer. It particularly reminds me of the bracelets that their Link series has. I'll drop a photo in. But it's a milled bracelet. It's got a milled clasp on a bracelet from the 90s, and it's got solid end links. This was just like very strange for a watch from the 90s. Usually you would see just, a press fit bracelet, and hollow end links, but yeah, I don't know. It's also got a diver's extension, implying that, you know, we do intend for you to use this watch as a tool, even though it's kind of going for that 90s sense of elegance, which is apparently really weird Geiger-esque shapes. Look at this thing on the wrist. So as I mentioned, it's a 36, so it wears somewhat small, but on the wrist, that bracelet is just butt ugly, man. So what we're gonna do here real quick is I'm gonna show you what strap I use to wear this watch. There, that is much better, isn't it? So this is a Cordura strap, which is supposed to be waterproof. It has a leather backing, but it definitely holds up better in water than a leather strap typically would. This top part, of course, is water-resistant fabric. Kind of reminds me of sailcloth, but it's a little different. Anyway, I think that just looks way, 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 way better than this funky shapes bracelet. But that's the 90s for you. It's funk, and that is honestly a theme with Zodiac. Is just funk, man. They're a weird, funky brand. They're all about kind of bright colors and not bombastic, but just kind of odd designs sometimes. I would turn the bezel here for you, but that bezel is unbearably hard to turn. I can do it with rubber gloves on, but it is not a great turning bezel, so I just leave it at the 12. I'll never dive this watch. It is 200-meter water resistant, but being from the 90s, vintage at this point, I am not diving this thing. There's the case back for you guys, just a simple engraved case back since 1882, and there's the reference number. 200 meters tested, so I mean it was intended to be a full-on diver. But yeah, just a cool one. I really like this piece. Been wearing it a lot lately. Love how the 36 looks on my small wrists. Looks great. But moving on now. So let's talk about the next one in the lineup, and we're basically going chronologically here. I am not sure exactly when this watch came out. I want to say it was in the 2010s. Like, I don't know why, but in my head I'm thinking like 2012 or 2013, but I can't remember why I would think that. I do know it predates the Seawolf reissue. This is the Astro Racer, and this is, I have the crown popped out, so the time's not right on this. The date is also broken, by the way, which is still breaks my heart because I love this watch. So this is obviously an example of Zodiac chronographs, and again, we can see some references to Heuer here. There is a lot of overlap, and even in Zodiac's current lineup, they have overlap with Heuer. But just in the there's not a Heuer model that looks exactly like this, but just in the kind of odd subdials with those square cutouts and the coloration of it, you know, being kind of a, I guess you'd say kind of a panda, but not exactly because of the color scheme being this gold and tan. But yeah, this too is a little different in that we can see here. This was after Fossil acquired Zodiac, which they picked it up. So it went, Willie Gad Monnier, who, I don't know if I pronounced that right, was the CEO of Heuer that I mentioned earlier. He purchased Zodiac, and then he was unsuccessful with the brand. They were picked up by Geninder Incorporated. They were unsuccessful with the brand, and then Fossil picked them up. This is a product of Fossil, and as everything else is from here on. So what you can see here is it's using Zodiac's all caps branding, which I hate. I think that Zodiac's classic branding like this should have always been the one in use. But anyway, and it's just a regular old quartz chronograph, kind of a thick boy. You see the chronograph ticking away there. Pretty simple. You've got your running seconds in this subdial and elapsed time up to 30 minutes in that subdial. And that's about it. Nothing too crazy here. But it's a solid chronograph movement. Like I said, the only issue I've had is that date wheel getting stuck, and nothing will loosen it now. It is definitely come off the crown there. I can't work it at all. Anyway, so yeah, it's a pretty cool chronograph. I do think Zodiac does some really cool stuff, and I think they are smart in the fact that they draw on Heuer for their chronograph designs, because I mean, if anybody knows how to make an awesome looking chronograph, it's Tag Heuer. So that is something I think that they have strength in. And I'll actually show a photo of the Grand Rally is the model that Zodiac currently runs in their lineup. That is very Heuer-esque. So here's a photo of that up here just so you can kind of compare the two. I do have a soft spot for this Astro Racer because I love watches that use kind of that root beer color scheme, that, you know, dark browns, light browns. I used to call this one my coffee racer because I used to wear it every time I rode my cafe racer motorcycle. But yeah, definitely a cool watch. I have a very, very big affection for this, and I did recently find a watchmaker close by who hopefully I'm going to go visit. Maybe they can fix that date wheel for me. All right, so moving right along. This next watch, you know what, we're just going to put this, yeah, I'll put that right there. This next watch to me is, it's my personal favorite watch design of all time. The Zodiac Seawolf. To me, this watch is everything that a Rolex Submariner isn't. There's no, and again, this is, of course, we're looking at, you know, Rolex subs from, you know, gosh, 70 years ago when they were first proliferating as a dive tool. I'm sure they weren't viewed that way then, but, you know, now when you think of Rolex Submariner, you know, you think of prestige of the brand, you know, things like that that are kind of like, at the end of the day, it just needs to tell the time, man. So the Seawolf, to me, it's I don't know, man. It's kind of an underdog story kind of thing. It was right out there with the sub. It didn't get the notoriety that the sub did, but it did become really popular with soldiers during the Vietnam War because Seawolves were being supplied through the PX in the military. So a lot of soldiers were picking them up and wearing them during their service, which to me is a pretty cool legacy to have. So yeah, so that's the design to me is visually striking. The history of Zodiac is very interesting. We're not going to talk about the Zodiac Killer, by the way, although he did use Zodiac's symbol there in, you know, some of his writings. We're not going there, but yeah. So it's just a really, you know, interesting legacy to me. I love their design styles, and I love their commitment to creating great dive tools. If you visit their Instagram page, they definitely want their watches to be worn in the water. They want their watches to be worn on dives. Now, that said, this particular Zodiac was an aspirational watch for me. It was my grail watch. And for that reason, I won't wear it on a dive. I really should, but I just can't bring myself to do it because it just meant so much to me when I finally got this watch. So let's talk about prices, I guess. This one is typically going to come in around $1,000. I did not pay that much for it. I bought it used for less than half that because it was a display model that just wasn't selling for whatever reason. I was able to get a great deal on it, and the auction ended at like, yeah, I bought it on eBay. The auction ended at like, you know, the middle of the night, so nobody was there to bid on it. So yeah, so I should actually mention that with these other watches. This one, typically you'll find it around the $1,000 mark. These 90s Quartz Zodiacs, man, you can get some deals on these. These are anywhere from a couple hundred to 500, but I wouldn't pay that much. I would definitely aim for like 100 to 200 bucks on these. And the Astro Racer here, oh, these are hard to come by. These are anywhere from like 150 to 300. There's one currently on eBay in great shape with the original bracelet, which I don't have, for $300, which is honestly, I think, is a fair deal if you're into that sort of thing. But I've already got one. I don't need another, so I'm sticking with this old guy. But yeah, so this one will always be my favorite, though. I love the way this watch looks on wrist. I just think I don't know, there's something about that design. There's something about the opposing colored bezel to me that just works. And of course, there are multiple Seawolf designs within the kind of the close era there. There's this version, which of course we have this it's made to imitate bakelite on the bezel, and then the dial has this kind of a cross pattern. There's the classic Seawolf pattern, the original pattern, which I'll see if I can get a photo of right here. And there's several after that. There's one that's even funkier that Zodiac currently has in their lineup, which I love the look, but I think I prefer this slightly more simple one. I wouldn't describe it as minimalistic. I hate minimalism. I think it's got a lot going on, but it's a little bit less complex than the one I'm showing right now. So yeah, I guess there's not much more else I can say about this one. It's sapphire. The movement is an STP 111, which is an ETA 2824 kind of modified movement. There's the case back for you. I really wish this had a display back. The original Seawolves from the 2015 reissue had a very nice display back because it's a beautiful movement. But yeah, just a nice engraved case back. Just made to be used. You can see here, of course, this bracelet is actually not the original bracelet. It didn't come on a bracelet, it came on a leather strap. These were not actually made to receive bracelets, these initial ones. So I actually took a Seiko bracelet, and it actually happened to perfectly fit on a Zodiac clasp that I had. So now I've got a perfect bracelet for my Zodiac Seawolf. All right, so moving on, guys. Love that watch. It will always be my favorite watch. This one is the one that I'm kind of the most excited to share because it is the most affordable one in this whole group, and it's one of the most visually pleasing. It's just a really beautiful watch. It comes on a great bracelet. This is not the bracelet it comes on. I just think it really looks good on this Beads of Rice bracelet from Gekoda. But it comes on a oyster kind of style bracelet. Very similar to this one. It has polished mid links, but it does have a flat end like this because you can see from the case shape, that tonneau shape, that it's going to be just kind of a flat end bracelet. So this one came out, I think in like 2019, I think. So there was an automatic version that predated it, same design and everything, called the Sea Dragon. This is the Grand Hydra. The Grand Hydra is the quartz version of the Sea Dragon. And what's wonderful, you see the date's in the middle of changing right now. I'm filming pretty late. What's wonderful about this, though, is it really takes all of the best aspects of that beautiful Sea Dragon and just brings it to you in a quartz format for those of us who just don't have the money to drop. So those Sea Dragons were coming in around, I think, like $800 and $900. You can get these Grand Hydras for, gosh, like $150. That's when, if you're paying attention, you can find them on sale for like $150, new. So yeah, keep an eye out. I tend to buy all my watches used just because it's not hard to find a good used watch. And if you're paying attention, you look closely at all the photos, you know, you're gonna be able to usually and check user ratings, of course. You'll be able to get a good deal on a used watch. So that's how I buy all of mine. I don't believe in buying watches new unless you can get a crazy good deal. But this is one of the ones that you can. So what's cool about this watch? The funky 70s design, that tonneau case shape. Look at that crystal. That's awesome. I love domed crystals, and I love watching the visuals kind of oblique as you turn the crystal. I love the hands. The hands on this thing are really cool, kind of semi-skeletonized hands. The red seconds hand's nice. This is a green dial. It's kind of hard to tell indoors. Outside you can see it much better. It's a nice dark green though, so you can get away with, you know, it'll match up to pretty much anything you're wearing, like a black dial would, even though it is a dark green. And look at the finishing. I love the finishing on this watch. It's just for the money. It's absurd. And this is what's so great about a company that has the resources that Fossil has with taking over this brand. They can just do some great finishing work, great detail work. You've got nice contrast between your brush surfaces and your high polished surfaces. And yeah, I just think like this watch looks like $1 million, man. I really love it. Signed crown. My Seawolf doesn't have a signed crown. Like that's, you know, that's wild. So yeah, I don't know. And again, what you're getting here, I think, this is a 100-meter watch, so you can swim with it, no problem. I mean, it's basically the perfect Zodiac everyday watch. That's how I feel about the Grand Hydra. You've got the sense of kind of open water adventure that Zodiac is kind of associated with. Even though it's not technically a dive watch, it's definitely made to be worn swimming and stuff like that. It has that dive look to it, you know, that tonneau case shape and that minute track over there, kind of similar to the way that what's the word I'm looking for? A compressor dive watch has a track around the outside with your elapsed time numerals. I'll show a photo of a compressor diver. It kind of reminds me of that. So it definitely has cues from dive watches. So it's really, in my opinion, the perfect everyday Zodiac. You can wear it with a tropic strap, looks great. But yeah, so anyway, I love this one. The diameter on this one's 42. By the way, guys, I really am rambling here. Diameter on the Seawolf here is 40, and on this Astro Racer, I don't know what it is, but it's huge. I want to say it's 43, I think, but then the big thing is the lug-to-lug on this thing is just massive. This watch wears huge, and it's very thick. But this guy is pretty svelte. Nice thin case. I would guess it's around 12 millimeters. There's the case back for you. Nice and clean, Swiss-made quartz. It is a Swiss quartz movement. And 100 meters, yep, so just an excellent watch. Mineral crystal on this one, by the way, also mineral crystal on this one. But both the Seawolves here are sapphire, as I mentioned earlier. So what am I all boiling up to with this long-winded rambling video? I've said it earlier, but I do think that Zodiac just has managed to kind of grasp that sense of adventure and I don't know, man. There's just something to me when I look at Zodiacs that immediately makes me think of being out on the water, obviously scuba diving, but just taking on, you know, whatever cool guy thing you can think of. I really love these watches, and that's why they're my favorite brand. And they're quirky, you know. They're quirky, but they're still stylish. They're funky without being just outright weird. But yeah, I'm a big fan of these two in particular. I think are just stunning watches. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this rambly, ridiculous, off-the-hand video. Like I said, we do have a lot of videos in the works coming that are going to be much more polished than this. Particularly, Walsh has got some stuff coming. I've got quite a few coming as well. I can't wait to get the scuba video on my dive in. Let's hold up these two Seawolves together. On my dive in Mexico, that's going to be a fun one. But until then, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please stick around. If you like this video, give it a like, give us a sub. We got a lot of cool content coming for you guys, and we will see y'all soon. Peace.